factory 2019 Sprinter can only run up to a 245. So we're going to run 265, 75, 16s on here. So we need to actually cut this wheel well out bigger. Alvan Engineering has an amazing video on this, so I'm not even going to try to top it, but here's the gist of it. This piece comes off, we cut bigger, this piece gets relocated, bracketed back to where closer towards this door. So to do it, you have to remove this inner fender, the rear half, this piece here, and then we'll cut and paint, seal it all up, relocate it back. I'll show you the passenger side to give you an idea. So that's about how far this one sits. Give you an idea, 3.5 inches or so from the bottom of that door. And then I'll show you the other side. Here's the passenger side. So you can see how much it's moved. About 1.5 inches. That's all bracketed in there now. All that's back in. You can run up to 33s, I believe is what they said, but you have to actually cut the fender itself, which we're not going to worry about that. We're going to be running 31.5 inch tires. So first thing you're going to do is remove the nuts that are in here. They're like a plastic, so just be careful, but there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, I believe. 10 millimeters. I would also, if you're in your own shop, recommend taking the tire off. That's what Alvan and Van Compass recommend. I don't have any good jack stands here. I have my bottle jack, but I didn't want to have it up on a bottle jack. That's so dangerous. So I'm just leaving the tire on and moving it as necessary. It's kind of a pain, but it's doable. And then there's one down here underneath the fender itself. And then 2 Torx here and here. Matter of removing that. So you can see the 2 parts we're going to cut. We're going to trim this piece here, and then there's a pinch weld right back here, and that's what we're going to cut. Van Compass has some pretty good instructions on it. They have a pretty good diagram on where to cut and trim. So this part here, you're going to measure 1.5 inches back. Also, save these clips. Tip that Alvan had was use this shape right here, that shape right there, to draw your line. Great tip, Alvan. And then the cut goes down to your pinch seam, pinch weld seam down here. Cutting. Best part about this piece is all removable and replaceable. So there's aftermarket ones, or you can buy factory ones. Alright, so I've already ground it down, and I'm going to clean it up with acetone, and then that way we can paint it. Might be hard to see, but I'm going to coat the edge. It's rust tough, it's enamel. It's like a protective primer type stuff.
Tell the camera what it is.
That's the factory white paint. There's one little spot up here that I don't know if you're gonna see, but I don't want black and I don't want bare metal, so I'm gonna paint it with the factory white. This is a touch-up paint. Depending on what Mercedes you go to, price can vary from $25 to $50 for one of those little touch-up paints. One of the tips that Alvan had was install this first onto the bracket, the fender onto the bracket, get that up to where you want it, and that will give you where you want your holes to be drilled. Van compass sent over self-tapping screws, so that way this bracket can get mounted up to the van. So that's the bracket onto the actual fender. That gives you an idea of how it's going to go. So, what I did last time is I actually installed this screw here, or this nut, this little plastic nut here to hold it, and then the plastic nut on the other side on the bottom, and that gives it a really good idea of where it's going to be sitting. You can just do it hand tight. Got the bracket where I wanted it. I'm looking at the line here, down here, making sure the bottom of the fender's fitting up with the body line there, and then I'll use the self-tapping screws 1, 2, 3 to mount that up to the actual van. Once this is installed where you like it, everything is looking good, I'm going to take the fender off of it now, leave the bracket on there. Take those two nuts off that you had down there. Don't drop your nuts. Now, we're going to reinstall the inner fender. Yeah. So hot now. Alright, I gotta crawl underneath. Alright, lighting change. We had to turn on the AC, it's got a little warm out there. But what I noticed when I go to install this last time on the other side was as this goes on, this gap that is left here from the non-metal, as this fender, inner fender goes back, the hole where it needs to line up to the hole here doesn't line up anymore because this angle changes. So I actually went in and just re-drilled a hole maybe ½ inch, quarter inch down below the existing factory hole, and that worked out really well. There. And that's done. So you can see it looks factory, you can't even tell. Good job, Van Compass. Now we can run the 265/75s. Today, installing windows. We did C.R. Lawrence windows again. We love the flip out bottoms with the screens in them, so we will tear these things apart and cut out the window holes. Alright, before you cut giant holes in your window, inspect the windows and make sure that they're good. And then also look for this little baggie of screws. You're going to need it. So don't get lost in the packaging. One was actually taped to the windows, one was just in randomly with all the paper. So keep an eye out for it. Alright, so Christina taped it off a little bit to keep some of the shavings from going into the insulation area. The bottom down there we can vacuum out. We also taped off the cab because we're going to be spraying Super 90 glue to add fabric around the window, which will show that. And then she added some tape along these cracks here to keep as much of the shavings out of those cracks as possible. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go around this edge all along here and just drill tons and tons of little holes all the way around. This is what the outside's going to look like once you get all the holes drilled. So really pay attention to the detail on the corners, because you'll thank yourself when you go to saw this out. Now we're going to go around and tape off the whole entire thing, because we're going to be running a jigsaw on the outside of the van to cut this out. And be careful, because these are very, very sharp. There's lots. You can see those little things sticking out. So just use caution when you're taping this part off. So for this part, I'm going to drill a couple bigger holes just around on this paneling here. And what that'll do is allow me to get my jigsaw blade in there. And then we're going to use a jigsaw to go around and cut this whole thing out. Get yourself some good metal blades, and you'll be going around, and what I'll do is I'll trace each one of these holes as well. So I'm going to use a straight edge and draw a line between all of these holes so I know where I'm going to be cutting. You'll see I'll do a time lapse of that. Just be careful again of those edges. They are razor sharp. And then once the line is drawn, those holes are drilled, then I'll go through and start cutting it all out. Window cut out, ground down, painted, taped off. This one, Christina is now. painting the edge. Hello. So we'll get that all painted up with the rust stop paint. Now, this one is all taped off all the way up to this edge because we're going to add fabric to the outside of this. Give it a more finished look.
All the kids are doing these days.
See how it goes. We've done some fabric, some wrapping. Nothing so contoured as that, so we'll see. Alright, for this part, we applied 3M Super 90 to the walls, made sure it was tacky. You can't see it in this portion, but we applied Super 90 to the piece of fabric that we have, and we cut out the centerpiece there just to give us some more movement as we put it up on the actual wall. And then you can see just how we go around very methodically, very slowly, and start applying it to the actual wall. Christina was very, very careful to keep an eye on the level of the fabric, because the fabric has an up, down, left, right type of fabric design in it, and it could very easily get skewed, especially on the corners. So just be very careful with that and go through and just like I'm doing there, with just your thumb and your hands, and just slowly work the fabric out. I would go around and I would cut relief cuts. Make sure you don't cut them too close to the metal though. And then just slowly go around and apply more Super 90 as needed.
I think you're good right there. Like a glove.
It actually worked! High five!
Yeah, now we don't have to worry about it. Unless a tornado comes, and then it doesn't really matter. Alright. Glad that worked.
They both fit. Look at this. They both fit in there.
Good thing we don't have a bunch of stuff built out sitting around.
It's actually room to walk through. Nuts! Huh. Crazy. Texas. So confused. Rainbows, severe thunderstorms with lightning, little bits of hail, and beautiful sunsets. It doesn't know what it wants.